But first, never normal again? Well, that's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, this time of year is usually filled with Christmas parties, bustling restaurants, trips to visit loved ones. This happens all over the country, but of course, because of COVID, for most of us, nothing seems the same. And more Americans are on edge. Now, some are legitimately terrified of getting the virus. There's been a lot of tragedy, we know it. Others want to end lockdowns and all these rules that they believe are arbitrary and destructive. Now, even conversations between friends and between colleagues can get heated, as it did on CNBC this morning between Andrew Ross Sorkin and Rick Santelli. Now, Santelli rightly noted the illogical choice to keep things like big box stores open, yet move to shut down restaurants.
There is actually and should be an ongoing debate as to, why a parking lot for a big box store like by my house is jam-packed. Not one parking spot open. Why are those people any safer than a restaurant with plexiglass? I just don't get it. You can't tell me that shutting down, which is the easiest answer, is necessarily the only answer.
Oh, well, then Mr. Sorkin claimed, without evidence, that restaurants spread more COVID than big stores.
The difference between a big box retailer and a restaurant, or frankly, even a church, are so different, it's unbelievable. Going into a big box retailer,
I disagree.
You're wearing a mask.
You can have your thoughts and I can have mine.
You're required to wear a mask.
I disagree.
It's science. I'm sorry. It's science. If you're wearing a mask, it's a different story.
500 people at a Lowe's aren't any safer than 150 people in a restaurant that holds 600. I don't believe it. Sorry. Don't believe it. And I live in an area where there's a lot of restaurants that have fought back and they don't have any problems.
He's right. People are beginning to fight back. Now, you saw the protest this week outside of Mac's Public House, which is a bar in Staten Island, where the owner was arrested for just staying open, just like other restaurants are permitted to do just a few blocks away. But the elites like Sorkin, they think that they can justify any harm being done to working-class Americans by invoking the science. Well, individual Americans' rights and livelihoods are expendable in this brave new scientific world. People need to do what they're told. No questions asked.
You don't have to believe it, but let me just say this. You're doing a disservice to the viewer because the viewers need to understand it.
You are doing a disservice to the viewer. You are. You are.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I would like to keep our viewers as healthy as humanly possible. The idea of packing people into restaurants.
I think our viewers are smart enough to make part of those decisions on their own.
Completely different
things. I don't
things.
think that I'm much smarter than all the viewers like some people do.
Oh, wow. Well, that debate really does capture what's going on across America. Now, all of us know what a tragedy this virus has been for so many families. But the disagreement centers on how we as a free nation manage it. So Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker are all Democrat governors whose first impulse against COVID is to shut stuff down and strip you of your freedoms, while making, of course, exceptions all the while for themselves. Now, we're calling it the Covocracy. And no, we aren't at all moved by the fake apologies that always follow on when they get caught, or calls for unity from these Covipocrites. They always give that after getting caught red-handed breaking their own rules. Now, today, this was fascinating. Alex Berenson, he's been on our show so many times, he published an email that he received by a man who lives with his family in Northern Virginia. Now, he and his wife have good-paying jobs that allow them to work from home with few inconveniences. But not so for his working-class brother and his family, who still live in their hometown of Brooklyn. When New York City went into lockdown, my brother was laid off and his wife was forced to close her hair salon. When New York City schools closed, my brother had to figure out how to help my nephew finish kindergarten through Zoom. If my brother wanted to relieve some stress through recreation, too bad. Well, the fact is, this pandemic has illustrated what conservative populists have been saying for years, that the educated elites are almost completely disconnected from the way working-class Americans think and how they live. Not to mention how propagandistic many in the medical establishment have become. The New York Times just published the responses to an informal survey of epidemiologists. And it seems that most, even with the vaccine, would never recommend that we go back to our old lives ever again. Now, the answers range from masks for the next few years to we'll never go back to our pre-pandemic freedoms. Now, remember, this is what they're saying after we'll have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on vaccines, lost trillions in wealth, lost years off our children's development and education, but still not going back to normal? So what do you think is going on here? Has everything become too political? Is this all about achieving the globalist goal of a great reset of our world economy? The effort whose proponents, by the way, use Biden's Build Back Better motto to push their idea of forced wealth equalization. Now, Americans who care about their freedoms and our independence, they better start asking questions. And by the way, don't let the experts wave you off by saying, this is what the science says. Because I bet most of them either don't know or don't care about what the U.S. Constitution says. And that's the angle.